got to see. Oh, my God! I'm gorgeous!
If you grew up in the 90s, Third Rock from the Sun probably felt like the weird cousin of every other sitcom on TV. It wasn't just about an oddball family. It was about 4 aliens trying way too hard to pass as human in a sleepy Ohio college town. You had Dick melting down over parking spots and office politics, Harry squinting his way through life, Tommy secretly being the oldest member of the crew, and Sally treating every trip to the mall like a tactical mission. But underneath all that slapstick, the show was quietly doing some really strange, really ambitious stuff. From almost airing on a different network, to sneaking in high-level physics, to a series finale that literally has 2 different realities, depending on which version you saw. So today, we're diving into some of the strangest behind-the-scenes stories, Easter eggs, and alternate endings that make Third Rock one of the most bizarrely brilliant sitcoms of its era. Before we beam up, don't forget to like and subscribe if you love deep dives into classic TV. Now, let's kick things off with number 15. 15. The pilot almost lived on a different network. It's wild to think about now, but Third Rock from the Sun was originally made for ABC, not NBC. The creators shot the pilot, ABC looked at it, and passed. The show didn't make their 1995-96 fall schedule. That could have been the end of the story. But then NBC took a look, saw the potential, and picked it up. They still weren't totally convinced it felt like an NBC show, so the pilot was reshot before the series finally premiered in January 1996. So that bizarre, over-the-top first impression of the Solomons, the awkward dinner scenes, Dick falling apart over human emotions, is already a second draft of the show. In some alternate timeline, Third Rock is remembered as a failed ABC oddity that never got off the ground. Instead, NBC basically adopted someone else's rejected alien baby, and it became one of their defining late 90s comedies. 14. People thought it was just one long, dirty joke. From the very beginning, Third Rock walked a hilarious tightrope between clever satire and, well, a whole lot of innuendo. Dick is literally named Dick. Harry is a space cadet. Sally is figuring out gender and dating with zero chill. Early on, some viewers and critics brushed it off as a show obsessed with cheap body humor and sex jokes, like it was all boob jokes and double entendres wrapped in a sci-fi costume. The thing is, they weren't totally wrong. The writers absolutely leaned into immature alien misunderstandings. Dick misreading flirting, Harry taking every metaphor literally, Sally treating romance like a combat mission. But that lowbrow surface is kind of the point. The aliens latch onto the most obvious, awkward parts of being human: lust, jealousy, ego, and exaggerate them until they're ridiculous. By season 2 and 3, the show is using those same dumb jokes to poke fun at politics, academia, masculinity, celebrity culture, you name it. It's juvenile and surprisingly sharp at the same time. 13. The episode titles are one giant dick bit. If you ever felt like the show was really committed to the dick joke, you're absolutely right. Out of the show's 139 episodes, 108 of them have the word dick in the title. That's everything from post-nasal dick and abdic Ted to dick jokes and dick soup for the soul. It's one of the most dedicated running gags in sitcom history. The writers weren't just slipping the name in casually. They were building full pun-based titles around it, week after week, for years. The very titles became part of the show's voice. Half sci-fi experiment, half 12-year-old with a thesaurus. It also tells you something about the tone the creators were going for. This wasn't going to be a gentle family comedy. It was loud, silly, and just self-aware enough to laugh at its own immaturity. By the time you get to Assault with a Deadly Dick, you either get the joke, and you're in, or this show was never meant for you. 12. Dick Solomon was basically Bugs Bunny in a lab coat. John Lithgow's performance feels big, like theater kid turned mad scientist big, and that was by design. The character of Dick Solomon was conceived as part swashbuckling matinee idol, part cartoon. Think Errol Flynn if he got dropped into a college faculty meeting, and then add Bugs Bunny's complete disregard for social norms. Lithgow had spent most of his earlier screen career playing villains, oddballs, and serious dramatic roles. Taking on a broad, physical, full-tilt comedy lead in a network sitcom was a sharp turn. Interviews from the time talk about him relishing the chance to do something that felt closer to stage work. Huge reactions, wild monologues, full-body slapstick instead of subtle close-up acting. You can see it in every meltdown and smug lecture Dick delivers. He's overconfident, hypersensitive, and weirdly noble all at once. An alien who picked self-important professor as his disguise and then overcommitted to the bit. Without that theatrical energy, Third Rock would just be a quirky idea. With Lithgow, it becomes something operatic. 11. Dick's hapless student is Lithgow's real son. If you watched Third Rock and always felt a little bad for Leon, the nervous, not-so-bright student Dick keeps picking on in class, there's an extra twist. Leon is played by Ian Lithgow, John Lithgow's real-life son. Leon shows up again and again as the human equivalent of a stress ball. Dick grills him on physics concepts he clearly doesn't understand, uses him as an example, shames him in front of the entire class, and Leon just sort of grimaces his way through it. When you know that's father and son, those scenes gain this strange layer of metacomedy. It's like the show is quietly riffing on the idea of parental expectations, but turned up to alien levels. Dad as literal all-knowing commander. Son as the human who never quite gets it right. In real life, Ian is a Harvard grad and later became a therapist, which makes all those dim-witted student jokes even more deliciously ironic. 10. Harry's iconic squint was invented on the spot. Harry Solomon might be one of the strangest physical performances in any 90s sitcom. The hunched posture, the loose-limbed walk, the slightly delayed reactions, and of course that permanent, scrunched-up squint. That wasn't a makeup choice or a director's note. That was actor French Stewart creating a character from pure body language. Stewart has talked about how he built Harry as someone who's just slightly out of phase with reality. The squint, the head tilt, the way he seems to be receiving signals from somewhere else. They all sell the idea that Harry's antenna is tuned to a different channel than everyone around him. What's crazy is how risky that choice was. If it didn't work, the character could have been unwatchable. Instead, it became one of the show's most recognizable signatures. You can imitate Harry just by narrowing your eyes and letting your brain lag a half second behind your mouth. He's the one alien who never fully blends in, and the show is funnier for it. 9. A real physicist helped write Dick's technobabble. For all its ridiculousness, Third Rock quietly brought in some serious scientific muscle. The production tapped Brian Greene, the Columbia University physicist, who later became famous for the Elegant Universe, as a technical consultant. Greene helped shape Dick's classroom dialogue, the chalkboard equations, the physics jargon, the way he talks about complex concepts. That means some of those throwaway alien professor lectures are rooted in real theoretical physics. He's even mentioned that working with John Lithgow on the show was one of the more unusual side gigs in his scientific career. It adds a fun extra layer if you rewatch the classroom scenes. While Dick is ranting about human behavior and blowing up at his students, the stuff in the background isn't nonsense. It's actual science, filtered through a sitcom lens. Only on Third Rock do you get pratfalls, relationship drama, and legit physics, all in the same 22 minutes. 8. There's an in-universe Report on Earth tie-in book. At the height of the show's run, the creators released a tie-in book called Third Rock from the Sun, the official report on Earth by High Commander Dick Solomon. It's written as if the Solomons themselves compiled a field report for their alien overlords. The book leans hard into the show's absurd perspective. It features sections like what to do if you encounter Jell-O, a fan biography of Katie Couric, written by Harry, and a Cosmo-style quiz from Sally's point of view, all framed as earnest scientific observations about humans. It's basically an extra season of jokes in print form, expanding the idea that these characters are constantly cataloging our weird habits. If you're a fan, it feels like cracking open their mission logs. You get to see how they officially explain things like small talk, TV, and romance to the big giant head. And it's somehow even stranger than the show itself. 7. Tommy, Dick, Harry, and Sally. The names are the joke. The Solomons have very normal-sounding names: Dick, Sally, Harry, and Tommy. But even that's a gag. 3 of those names come straight from the phrase, every Tom, Dick, and Harry, which is basically slang for any random person. The aliens literally picked the most generic human names they could think of. That choice fits perfectly with the show's core premise. These ultra-advanced extraterrestrials are trying to hide in plain sight, but even their idea of plain is a little too on the nose. They're not just imitating humanity, they're cosplaying as the dictionary definition of average American family. And then there's Sally, their designated security officer, shoved into a female body and told to figure out what being a woman means by trial and error. She's the outlier in the naming convention, which quietly mirrors how she's the outlier in the family dynamic. Everyone else gets a classic guy next door name. Sally gets to be the one who doesn't quite fit the cliche. 6. The Coneheads sneak into a Halloween episode. Jane Curtin wasn't just Mary Albright. She was also part of one of Saturday Night Live's most famous alien families, the Coneheads. The writers couldn't resist sneaking in a nod to that history. In one of the show's Halloween episodes, you can spot background extras dressed as Coneheads walking through the scene. It's a blink and you'll miss it moment, but it works on a couple layers. On the surface, it's just a clever costume gag. For anyone who knows Curtin's SNL past, it's a meta joke about her going from one alien family to another. This time, as the human love interest who has no idea she's surrounded by extraterrestrials. Those little Easter eggs gave Third Rock a playful connection to the larger comedy universe. The show knew its cast carried history with them, and it loved winking at anyone paying close enough attention to catch it. 5. The Big Giant Head's Twilight Zone joke is legendary. When the Solomons' mysterious boss, the Big Giant Head, finally shows up in person, he's played by none other than William Shatner. That alone is a perfect sci-fi casting choice. But the show goes one step further with one of the best meta-gags in TV history. In the episode Dick's Big Giant Headache, Shatner's character complains about having a terrible flight because he saw something on the wing of the plane. Dick immediately responds, "The same thing happened to me." That one exchange references 2 versions of the same Twilight Zone story. Shatner played the terrified passenger who sees a gremlin on the wing in the original 1963 episode, Nightmare at 20,000 Feet, while John Lithgow played the same role in the 1983 segment of Twilight Zone, the movie. It's the kind of joke that sails right over casual viewers' heads, but if you know the reference, it's pure galaxy brain brilliance. 4. The theme song kept evolving, including a swing makeover. That bouncy guitar theme you hear over the opening credits. It was composed by Ben Vaughn, and in the early seasons it has a simple, slightly surf rock feel. Add tunes around the holidays. They'd occasionally drop in jingle bells and little festive flourishes, turning it into a Christmas-ified version of itself. Then things got even stranger. For the 1999-2000 season, the show handed the theme over to Big Bad Voodoo Daddy, who re-recorded it as a big, brassy swing number. Suddenly, this alien sitcom sounded like it was opening for a retro jazz club. Later episodes mostly went back to the original arrangement, but that temporary makeover adds to the show's odd charm. Even the sound of Third Rock was allowed to change identities, just like its characters. It's fitting for a series about beings who are constantly reinventing their personalities to fit whatever situation they stumble into. 3. The show's timeline feels scrambled for a reason. If you've ever binged Third Rock and felt like the continuity gets a little fuzzy, especially in later seasons, you're not imagining it. The show went through a jumble of scheduling decisions, time slot moves, and syndication edits that can make character arcs feel like they're happening out of order. Episodes that deepen relationships or introduce running gags don't always line up neatly with when they aired or how they were packaged in reruns. One week, Dick and Mary seem to be taking a big step forward. The next, the show feels like it's back to square one. Some of that chaos is just 90s network TV, but it also weirdly fits Third Rock's vibe. This is a show about aliens struggling to understand linear time, human rituals, and emotional growth. Watching the episodes slightly out of order just makes it feel more like you're stuck in the Solomon's scrambled perception of Earth life. Everything important is happening, just not necessarily when it's supposed to. 2. The finale secretly has two different endings. The official series finale, The Thing That Wouldn't Die, originally ends on a bittersweet note. The Solomons pile into their Rambler, sing their mission song, and beam away. Dick walks Mary out of the car, wipes her memory of him, but leaves her feelings intact, and leaves her unconscious on Harry's coat as the ship departs. But that's not the only version. A different ending was filmed and later aired in syndication. In that one, Mary wakes up after the family beams away, stumbles to the car, and gets behind the wheel. As she puts the key in the ignition, a naked Dick suddenly appears in the passenger seat and says he couldn't leave without her. Realizing she doesn't remember him, he panics, yells, "Alien abduction! Alien abduction!" and beams them both up to the mothership. Depending on which version you saw growing up, your mental canon is totally different. In one, Mary goes on without Dick, haunted by feelings she can't explain. In the other, she's literally abducted to live out the rest of her life in space. That's a pretty huge fork in the narrative road for a network sitcom. 1. It won big at the Emmys as its ratings collapsed. Here's one of the weirdest facts about Third Rock. Creatively and critically, it peaked at the same time its audience started drifting away. In 1997, the show won 5 Primetime Emmy Awards, more than any other series that year, including wins for John Lithgow and Kristen Johnston. But look at the Nielsen rankings, and you see a very different story. Season 1 landed at 22nd place. By Season 6, the show had slid all the way down to 89th. While the awards kept coming, the mass audience slowly moved on to other shiny new comedies. That contrast might be the most Third Rock thing ever. It was never designed to be a safe, middle-of-the-road comfort show. It was loud, physical, surreal, and unapologetically strange. The fact that it quietly turned into a cult favorite while it was still airing just proves how out of step, in the best way, this alien family really was. Conclusion. Looking back, Third Rock from the Sun wasn't just a sitcom about aliens pretending to be human. It was a full-blown experiment in how weird network TV could get and still sneak into prime time. From pun-heavy episode titles and family in-jokes in the casting, to legit physicists punching up the dialogue and alternate endings that changed the show's entire emotional landing, it operated on layers most viewers never even knew were there. The Solomons were always outsiders, baffled by our obsessions with status, relationships, holidays, and small talk. But that outsider perspective is exactly what let the show roast human behavior so effectively. It could clown on academia, gender roles, patriotism, and pop culture while still feeling silly and warm. If it's been a while since you visited Rutherford, Ohio, this is your sign to go back. Watch it knowing about the ABC pilot, the Twilight Zone gag, the hidden book, and that wild alternate finale, and see what new details jump out at you. If you enjoyed this trip, hit like, subscribe, and let me know in the comments which weird facts surprised you most, and which 80s or 90s show you want to see get the weird facts treatment next.